Welcome back, my awesome people. I am here with an amazing interview with Si Katara, who is the CEO and founder of Tapp Alpha. If you don't know Tapp Alpha, well, guess what? Stay tuned and you will not only get to know more, but it will maximize your gains when it comes to investing. So let's get right into it. Welcome, Si. How are you doing today?
Doing great, Jacob. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
No problem at all. I know it's a busy time this quarter coming up, end of the year and so on. So thank you for sitting here with me. So let's get right into it. So Sai, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your history, core mission, and what inspired you to start Tapp Alpha?
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. So TappAlpha has been around for about 18 months now, and I actually came from a totally different world. I was a computer engineer by trade, ended up working for a startup in Silicon Valley, and sort of did the low-level technology development work, hardcore coder, and loved the startup environment. But over the years, I've always been passionate about finance, about fintech, and was trying to figure out how to make my way to this industry. So, over time, I ended up actually starting a prior technology company in the early 2000s, totally different world, construction technology, built it, ran it for 17 years. And I blinked my eyes and half my career was already behind me. And so I thought to myself, if I ever wanted to make a change or make an impact in another industry, I got to make a move. And so in October of 22, I ended up leaving the company that I founded and was trying to figure out what's the next adventure going to be. And finance was something I was really interested in. Well, as there's no perfect time to sort of take the risk and start something new. Um, 4 months from that date that I left the prior company, my wife and I were pregnant. We're going to have our first daughter, our baby girl, in
Oh,
February 23. And so
nice.
that I think those things actually like they play into making decision making to say, look, you don't have forever in this world, so what are you going to do to make a difference? But then there were the practical challenges, right? So we were about to have a kid. I didn't have that regular income anymore, and so I had to figure out how to make ends meet. And being a technology entrepreneur, I had always kind of been a buy and hold investor. I just bought the SPY, let it run, and it was sort of no maintenance and served us well over the years. But I don't know if you remember in October of 22, the markets were way down. And so I didn't want to have to sell my equities in the S&P 500 in order to make ends meet. So at that time, I remembered a strategy that my dad had actually taught me. He was like, you can actually sell covered calls on the equities that you have and generate income and potentially keep the underlying shares in order to sort of make ends meet. And so I tried that, but it was sort of a perfect storm because in that same month that I started, exploring these strategies, I discovered there was a new options capability available, and that was called daily options, zero DTE. And so I was like, well, it makes sense. Let me see what the premiums look like and if there's an opportunity here. So I started writing zero DTE calls on the SPY shares that I had. And fast forward 2 months, the income on top, just the income component that was being generated from this strategy, covered the lion's share of our mortgage.
Wow.
And for our family at the time, that was a big deal. It was such a huge financial relief, especially when we're about to have our first child. And so just that feeling and what it enabled me to do, it allowed me to spend time and really enjoy my daughter's first year. And it also afforded time and space for me to figure out what's the next business going to be. And because it was so effective, I was trying to figure out how do I take this and actually make it the next business. So how do I take the value that I was benefiting from and share it with other families like ours? So one of the challenges in doing this every day, though, is it takes a lot of time. I was doing it. I had a lot of math going on to make sure that the risk reward was, in my comfort zone. So it took 3 to 4 hours a day for me to actually execute this in a way that I was comfortable with. But with the software background, I ended up actually writing web-based technology to help me execute the strategy. And so it took 4 hours a day down to under 5 minutes. And I was like, this is something potentially we can scale it out and help others in the market. So this was one of the initial pivots that we were trying to figure out. Do we take this technology and create a subscription web-based service so you can log in, tie it to your brokerage account, and have it sort of execute the strategy for you, or do we find another way to bring it to market? So I ended up exploring the ETF path and talked to a few ETF issuers, and they said, this could be really powerful if you took this fintech powered strategy, but wrapped it in the efficiency and the convenience of an ETF. Then nobody has to log in to software and learn it. They just get that benefit right in their brokerage account by buying your ticker symbol. And so that was one of the big shifts that we ended up pursuing, was launching the strategy within an ETF. And actually 3 weeks ago, we just launched our very first publicly traded ETF called TSPY on the NASDAQ. So it was a great journey to sort of get here from a different industry, bringing fresh eyes to finance and bringing technology to it. But now it's been really fun to actually see the benefits of what a strategy like TSPY can offer. And one of the biggest things, and this ties back to our mission and our purpose, our whole goal is to provide access to every investor and every advisor with powerful financial tools. And this is a great way for us to do it. ETFs democratize strategies. Technology really helps make it affordable. You put those things together, and all of a sudden, it broadens the access that people can have to strategies like this.
And you know what? That's actually a very excellent point, because ETFs have so much benefits, especially with tax sheltering, with, you can put into your registered accounts, and also, as you said, right, the average investor does not have to deal with all the technical complex components of trying to maximize their gains. And an example that I have is out here in Canada, we have a investment firm called Purpose Investments. I'm not sure if you've heard of it, but they, even before the Bitcoin ETFs, the spot Bitcoin ETF, they had it years ago. They used a covered call strategy, and they found a way to pretty much pay you a monthly dividend while trading crypto. So exactly how you found, a strategy that not many other ETFs have. So you are pretty much unique in that section. Can you elaborate more on what the daily means? I know, like, the daily strategy, because I do know covered calls. I've interviewed a few people and had a few videos on covered calls. But the daily, this kind of seems a little new to most of my viewers, and even myself. It's not something I'm fluent in. But can you elaborate on what the daily means?
Yeah, absolutely. So traditional covered calls used to be, 30 days minimum. So you would write a covered call, and it expires maybe about a month from now. And there's some ETFs out there that actually execute that, and you get the option premium in the same way. But now there's 3 indexes that actually have options that expire every day. And so what that allows you to do, it actually has 3 main benefits when executing a same day covered call versus actually writing one that's 30 days from now. The first one, and one of the most impactful, is at the same risk level for a 30-day call. If you actually do this strategy and you just do it the same risk level every day over that period, the premiums you get are upwards of 4 times as much. So
Oh,
from a risk
wow.
adjusted returns perspective, it's a huge benefit, because if you're taking a risk to go after these premiums here, why wouldn't you want to get paid more at that same risk level and try and execute the daily strategy? The challenge is it takes time, and then commissions become a marketable factor because you're doing this every day, right? So there's a commission every
Yeah.
day. So we limited that by, in the ETF itself, we're trading this bigger option called SPX. It's 10 times the size, which means you have to buy 1/10 the contract. So you can save 80 to 90% on your commissions by trading this different tool.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's really powerful. And the second thing that's really interesting is the flexibility. Every day in the morning when the market opens, you can actually set your strike price out of the money, and you can reset it every day. But if you have a 30-day call, you're stuck. You're kind of committed, and nobody can predict what the markets are going to do. But if you have flexibility to actually change it every single day, you can actually keep your risk profile in a comfort zone much more easily and effectively, because you actually have flexibility every day. Um, and then the last thing that's really important that not a lot of people talk about, it's overnight risk. So when do earnings come out after market close? When do macroeconomic reports get released? Many times before market open. So with a daily where you write it in the morning and it expires the same day, you can actually mitigate and eliminate the overnight risk that occurs and not have your option position be exposed to it. And so with those three things, it makes it much more manageable for people with low to moderate risk to take benefit from doing a daily covered call strategy to sort of harvest income on top of participating in the underlying capital growth of the shares underneath it. So it's a great balanced approach, and that's the one that helped our family quite a bit.
That really is a very balanced approach because, as you said, a 30-day contract, who knows what happens next week? We don't even know what happens tomorrow. But if you're able to gauge
Exactly.
the day, like if there's no bad news of the day, you can kind of gauge it. If there is bad news, you can even gauge it even more. So it really is more power in your hands at that point. So to elaborate more on TSPY, so I guess because I looked at the holdings and I guess about more than 95% is the SPY ETF, and then I guess the rest is the strategy, I'm assuming.
Yeah, so 99% of the so basically, effectively, when you buy a share of TSPY, you're effectively owning the same relative shares of SPY. So that's one of the most important things is you still are essentially owning the SPY shares themselves. Then in addition, what TSPY does is it executes this daily covered call writing strategy, and that's where the technology comes in. But it writes an out of the money covered call every morning, and 80 to 85% of the time, those expire worthless, which means that we capture all of those gains and we give them back to the investor in a monthly distribution. And we are also able to participate in the market exposure for the underlying S&P. So that's the main difference. It's important, at least it was to us, to own the actual shares of the SPY, but then add this component on top to create a differentiated product in the marketplace.
And especially since the other component is pretty much controlled by tech and AI, they can get to those premiums faster than the human hand can. And so with this technology, because I'm very intrigued in this technology that you have used for TSPY. Did you create it on your own? Did you have a team? Was it, even though you did tell us that it was something that came out of your personal life, but did you say, okay, I'm going all in, get a whole team going, or was it more of you were burning the midnight candle, kind of doing like a solo with a partner, and maybe that's about it? But how did you come up with this technology? Because it's actually so interesting.
Yeah, it was part of it was doing it. I did it walk before you can sprint. So I did it manually to start. And I saw all the places where there was friction. And I was too slow manually to do all the calculations and the math and the real-time information that I needed to take a position confidently every day. And so guess what else came out right at that time? ChatGPT and AI.
Oh.
So taking the things that I learned the hard way, doing it manually and working through it with AI actually helped me take and develop the algorithm. It helped me take and develop some of the code. It helped me figure out what are the inputs in real time that I need to put in the software so that now I can literally hit a button. It goes and fetches everything in real time, runs the math, and it gives me a very simple risk reward view. And me as a portfolio manager can now select this is in my risk profile. So I'm going to actually take this position, and then it helps execute the trades and manage it. And then the other thing that's really important too is monitoring. So as the market goes on during the day, there's a real-time dashboard that basically is shown to the portfolio manager, and then we can automate in real time to say, hey, this is getting close to out of your risk profile. Do you need to take an action here? And it can set up alerts and sort of create that real-time monitoring. So the technology is integral in order for us to deliver the performance that I know this kind of strategy can provide.
I mean, you guys already have jumped the curve because moving forward, I'm sure there's going to be a lot more tech and AI being involved with stocks and the stock market, especially with the new generation. Everything is in their hand. It's always apps. The last time someone did any paper stock trading was, decades ago. So you guys are pretty much revolutionizing the way. And so to my next point, how will your app kind of revolutionize the app world when it comes to not only stocks, but is there maybe a different plan down the road? Maybe you're going to get involved in a different sector. What do you think about the future?
I think the immediate timeline kind of looks like we wanted to bring out a product that was packaged that would prove the concept. And so that's what TSPY is. It's the flagship version of it. It runs it on the S&P 500, which is the gold standard for indices. And then we can just prove to the market through track record how this type of thing performs. Then we've already actually registered the next fund, which would be the same strategy using the same underlying technology on the NASDAQ 100. And then downstream, we can do the same thing on the Russell. And
Nice.
all three of those indices actually have same day daily options available. And so that's why it fits well. But then as the market sort of develops, some of the options exchanges are talking about doing daily options on other securities and even single stocks maybe in 2025. It's a very natural arc for us to then take the same tech and put it on a different underlying security. And your users or your viewers can select whatever their favorite underlying index is or stock, and then this adds that value on top, no matter what your thesis is and what indexes you want to run with. And then long term, what we envision happening is actually being able to license the technology out. This is purpose built for this kind of strategy, and giving this to advisors as well as individual investors to, for whatever their portfolio makeup is, use the innovation directly to sort of create this additive income generation on top of the software tool as well. So that's sort of the path that we see for the future of Tapp Alpha as the place we start. And there's a lot of growth opportunity ahead. But first things first, let's prove the model with TSPY and go from there.
That is exactly, I think, the route Tapp Alpha should take, especially with the licensing. You have this one unique technology that, advisors, smaller firms, larger firms, they may want to utilize because it may cost them more to try and create from scratch than it is just to license it from you because you've already done all the hard work for it. And so as a CEO and founder, what would you say during this whole process of creating Tapp Alpha, going through this journey? Maybe one or two important lessons, whether it's in business, whether it's in entrepreneurship, whether it's in tech. What would you say some of those lessons were?
I think there have been a couple big ones, kind of related to the last point we were just discussing. Focus is so important. It's so hard because as an entrepreneur, we're wired in a way that we get excited about opportunities and challenges, and we're surrounded by them all the time. But we only have 24 hours in a day, and so where we spend our time, where we spend our energy, where we spend our focus actually turns out to be the most important thing. And so in that path that I was just sharing for Tapp Alpha, the key underlying thing is there has to be a focus. And our focus is short dated covered calls using the innovation to do it. And then there's all sorts of scale points, but we don't have to reinvent the wheel. And so let's just do the one thing really, really well and then grow from there sequentially versus if I started to try and implement lots of different strategies and different indices, you can diffuse the energy and the effort that you have. So focus is one of the most important things, especially when you're resource limited getting something off the ground. The second thing I learned was, fear when you're an entrepreneur is a part of the process. It's scary to try and go out there and roll the dice. And it's like my bad analogy for the day. I'm known for terrible analogies, so bear with me. But it's like jumping off a cliff and like having the faith that you are going to be able to knit yourself a pair of wings on the way down. But one of the things, in starting the last company and starting this one that I really made a deliberate decision on was not to let that fear control what I don't do and actually let it be something that I get comfortable with, because in going out and in trying and just swinging the bat, you're never going to be right all the time. And in fact, you're going to be wrong a lot. And so when we can equip ourselves with the ability not to just take the losses as a loss, but take the loss as a learning. Oh my gosh, what that enables you to do and to change and evolve. And then it erases that fear because
Yeah.
you start to run towards those challenges to try things. And it speeds you up, and then you learn from it and you can actually get better so much more quickly versus if you want to go try and get to the perfect answer out of the gate. And so those are two things I've learned through the process that have been invaluable to trying to grow businesses and take experiences.
It's the best lessons, focus and fear, because you have to stay on the game plan even if things go wrong, things go left. And fear, I mean, it's inevitable, taking that leap, trying something new, the fear of what if it fails. But uh I remember when I would always try new things, like even for example, this YouTube stuff. I had no idea. I just used YouTube University, Googled everything, learned it. It was hard work in the beginning, but now it's easier because now you have those skills. I kind of wish I did have a mentor, but did you have a mentor through this journey? Maybe a couple of people that you maybe asked questions, they helped you along the way. Because I think mentorship is key, especially in a business world, because you are going to make mistakes, but we have to mitigate those mistakes by learning from other people's mistakes. And maybe do you have plans maybe of mentoring others, or are you already mentoring others? If you can talk to us about that.
Yeah, there are absolutely people that I looked up to through the process. I was lucky enough to participate in a program. It was actually sponsored by Goldman Sachs called 10,000 Small Businesses. And so
Nice.
they allow small businesses to come and participate. And we actually were able to go to a college in Boston called Babson University and actually be there in person with other entrepreneurs that were in startups and small businesses. And it was so valuable because everyone's going through struggles, but to be able to share those struggles and communicate, oh, I actually went through that last year and this is what we did to tackle it. That was really helpful. It was almost like group therapy too, because when you're starting a company, it can be very lonely. And so we had a lot of great connections there. But some of the professors that were part of that program became fantastic mentors for us. They were passionate about, they a lot of them came from bigger corporate environments, but they see the power of small business and how here in the US, like it is an unbelievable engine for our economy. Canada too has a thriving startup world. And they put the time, the effort into showing us ways through the challenges, especially those really fragile early stages that helped us kind of push through to get to places where we got more stable and more success. And so anything that I can do and have done. So I get folks that reach out to me on LinkedIn all the time, and I love interacting with people just to share experiences, see what they're going through. And if there's any sort of conversations, any tidbits that I can provide, I'm happy to do it just because I've been through that wall before. And any lessons that I can share with others that are going through it for the first time too is the very least I can do, especially after the leadership and mentorship that I've had with people that have helped me.
It's always the giving back that's the rewarding part, right? Like you've been rewarded with help, might as well reward others with help as well. Even just a phone call, maybe one phone call can totally transform someone's life. One advice as well. Thank you for that. So now let's just take a little pivot. So coming up in the next couple of months will be the United States elections. Of course, I can't vote because I am in Canada here. However, I've talked to a few CEOs of investment firms and other businesses and entrepreneurs. They prefer a Republican winner, regardless of who the Republican nominee is, but they do prefer the Republican party because of tax regulations, tax cuts, and everything that will kind of maybe help them with their business. For Tapp Alpha, does politics play any role in your business, or is it nope, we're sticking to our strategy. Whoever wins, we're not trying to do this every 4 years. We're sticking to our strategy. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, the election years are really interesting from a market performance perspective, and the biggest factor is volatility. Volatility likely goes up. They call it the fear gauge, fear index. Nobody knows what the outcome is going to be. Most important, vote. Whatever your party affiliation is, vote and participate in the process. It's so important. But for us, either way, volatility likely will go up, and especially with all the other economic conditions that are happening between now and the election. And when volatility goes up with a strategy like this, when it's options based, option premiums go up. So it actually helps strategies like TSPY because now you have bigger premiums over the same periods of time. And so you have flexibility now. And am I going to either take that premium and actually increase the income that I'm able to provide to investors, or am I going to create more space and bigger buffer, still get the same income, but now have a bigger safety net based on that volatility? And so it really does, whatever happens in the election, in election season, volatility going up helps option strategies like this. And then related to it, when you think about the macroeconomic conditions, now there's discussion about interest rate cuts. And so there's a lot of income investors out there that are worried that, oh, I was getting a 5.5% no risk, savings account or some sort of interest based income, but that's going to start to tick down with the Fed policy. So how do you replace that income? Strategies like TSPY covered call strategies are a really interesting one to consider when trying to figure out how to replace that sort of fixed income option or opportunity.
Very well said. Because I've other CEOs have had the same sentiment. They said, you know what, we're going to stick to our strategy. Volatility plays a very good role in, especially for those ETFs that are covered call or options or whatever their strategy is, but they love the volatility. They don't care about the actual election. They just care about the environment around the election, which has totally helped them out. So thank you very much for that answer. And so Sai, on this channel, we usually have a segment where we just ask out of the box questions, just 5 random questions just for the fun of it. Are you up for it?
Yeah, let's go.
All right. So if Tapp Alpha was a person, what kind of personality would it have?
It would have, I would say, somebody who is reliable, somebody who is focused, but somebody who has a little bit of curiosity and edge to try a few new things. And so those are the components where if you're thinking about an investing strategy too, it matches that personality type. You're buying the S&P 500. That's a pretty, it appeals to a certain risk profile in the low to moderate range. But if you got curiosity, and the whole goal of Tapp Alpha is tapping the potential of what you already have, you got to have some curiosity in order to get creative to tap the full potential of where you are. And it's that kind of personality I think the Tapp Alpha would be.
That is awesome. All right, next one. What's the most random app on your phone right now? You don't have to show us, but what would be the most like just for maybe you're just not doing anything for the moment and you're just on some random app?
Oh man, I have an app called the Breathe app, and it's one
Oh,
where I've been so excited about getting this. It took us a long time to get the strategy to market, and now that we're up and we're running, my dopamine levels are they're firing on all cylinders because I'm watching the tickers and I'm interacting with folks like you, and I'm having the time of my life and my career, and it's hard for me to like shut down at night. So the
yeah.
Breathe app has been really helpful for me to just kind of unlock, unload, and get some rest at night to try and come back firing the next day.
Perfect. If you were not in tech or finance or engineering, what totally unrelated career would you have pursued?
I would be a pilot. I love it.
Oh,
That freedom of flying and that feeling, like, and I'm actually, it's hard to tell on Zooms and virtually. I'm about 6'4", and so
oh,
fitting into
no
some of
way.
the cockpits
Nice.
would have always been a challenge. But I've always wanted to get my pilot's license and to have that feeling of freedom. I would love to be able to do that
Hey, who knows when you're not as busy with Tapp Alpha, you might go for it.
someday. Yeah.
Do you have any quirky habits that help you stay productive or creative or on task?
I have learned because of, like shiny things everywhere, an entrepreneur and how to stay focused. One of the most helpful things for me has been time boxing. And the way I explain it is like, I love a good checklist, but checklists, they're not helpful unless you can actually pin a time block to it. So I merge those two things. I've got my priorities and everything set. But if I actually have little slots that I can put those activities in, that time boxing is a game changer to sort of get through things and get them done. Because you'll always take the amount of time you give yourself. And so if you keep it tight, it's amazing the amount of stuff that you can get done from a productivity standpoint.
It's just straight dedication for that moment. And finally, what was your favorite childhood toy or game that may have given you a connection with your passion for tech?
Good question. Well, it kind of more translates to my desire to fly, but Superman, I loved it. All I wanted was a cape, and if I had one superpower, it was going to be to fly. But I think part of maybe how it ties to tech is there's a perspective that you can get if you leverage and use technology technology the right way that you can't get without it. And so that helps you kind of feel like you're flying because you're able to see more by leveraging innovation and technology in a way that you couldn't without those tools. So maybe that's how those two things tie together.
And I mean, I don't know what kryptonite's really made out of, but I'm sure it is something like lithium or uranium or something of
There
that
you
nature where
go.
we need it. Awesome. Thank you for that, Sai. It just gave my viewers just a little bit more character development whenever I interview people. Okay, so before we end off, what advice would you give to aspiring entrepreneurs, business people looking to build a startup, especially in today's landscape?
I think my input that I would give is simply just do it. One of the things when I was first starting, the first company that I founded, I was 27. And so it's young, but I also didn't have the responsibilities because I didn't, was not married, didn't have a family. And I had that initial fear. But one of the, kind of the risk calculation I did at the time was, look, if I try this thing and I fall flat on my face and I fail, guess what? All the things that I'm going to learn through that process are going to make me so much more valuable if I have to go back to corporate America because no one I'm competing with is going to have those experiences. So from that perspective, it's kind of a win-win. So you win, you build a successful business, great. That was your goal. But you don't, and it doesn't work out, and statistically it doesn't. All the things you learn in the process and the person you become through that process is really the real value of kind of swinging the bat. So my advice to entrepreneurs is just don't overthink it, swing the bat, try, don't be scared to fail because those are the lessons that are going to actually make you a stronger person and make you a better business person at the end of the day.
Perfectly said. It's not the destination, it's the journey, what you're building through that journey, the skills, networking, especially. No, that definitely makes sense. And you know what? It's like you can fail 100 times, but that 101th could be that breakthrough. So, viewers, whatever you have as a passion, business, anything, you pretty much have one life. So use it to your advantage, go for it. You have nothing to lose unless, it's a few dollars, but you technically don't have nothing to lose. Okay, Sai. So now before we conclude this interview, do you have any last mentions, anything about Tapp Alpha, anything coming up? I know you said that you had a secondary product coming up, but is that coming up sooner than later? Or yeah, any other last mentions?
Yeah, probably a few months down the road. I think, yeah, everyone keep your eyes on TSPY, Tapp Alpha. You sort of see how the strategy will work with the market environment that's coming up. So keep your eyes on it. And then one of the key things that we'll be doing the first week of October is our very first income distribution. So keep your eyes on that. That's going to sort of be a component of the option premiums that we've gone out and harvested. And we'll be able to actually provide income directly into people's brokerage accounts. So that's a pretty key date coming up. I would love to come back if there's an opportunity to talk to you again once that distribution happens so we can actually see the strategy working, especially in an interesting environment like interest rates and election season. Get ready to rumble. It's going to be a fun one.
100%. You know what, Sai? And you know what, viewers? Sai will not be on this channel just once. He will be here multiple times because we would love to see this journey. We would love to see what happens not only with TSPY, but all the other products that we know that Tapp Alpha will be coming out with. So, Sai, thank you for the amazing wisdom, knowledge, also the insight in the world of app development and how they connect with stocks so we could maximize our gains. I mean, that is the point of investing, right? To maximize our gains. So if you're already, buying SPY, why not increase your gains by buying TSPY? Because I'd rather have $4 than $1. So, viewers, please make sure you like and subscribe. I will have all of Tapp Alpha's information in the description as well as size. So if you have any questions about Tapp Alpha or anything about app development, I'm sure Sai wouldn't mind answering questions, and you can also message me as well. So Sai, my awesome people, thank you so much. And we're just trying to get more insight in this revolutionary time that we're in. We got elections, we got global issues, we got volatility. We're living in a little weird time, but it's fun though. So subscribe and like, and my viewers, I will definitely see you soon. Thank you so much, Sai, for sitting here with me. And my viewers, stay ranting.